All right, guys, it's time. Let's do this. Welcome, everyone. Coach Adrienne here. Thank you for joining me for Women's Wellness Series Part 2. Hopefully, you were able to catch Part 1 last week, which was all about pre and post pregnancy. Today, we're going to be talking about pre and post menopause, which I'm super excited about. I love talking about this topic. It happens to be the phase of life that I'm going through right now. And for whatever reason, our society has made this topic a little hush hush, like we're not supposed to talk about it. But why? It's inevitable for most of us. We should talk about it. So share your stories. Share your stories with your coworkers, with your daughters, with your doctors, with your spouses. You know, menopause is a part of life, and there are things we can do to ease the symptoms. So let's get out there and talk about it, and share our stories. This can be a very happy time of our life as well. So let's get to it. Just a quick overview, we're going to be talking about the stages and changes throughout menopause, throughout perimenopause, regular menopause, and postmenopause. We're going to talk about just some general nutrition guidelines. We're going to talk about hormone replacement therapy. And then, of course, we're going to talk about next steps and resources. We're going to talk about all the super cool resources that you guys have available to you as an Intel employee. There's lots of them. So the 4 stages of menopause. Stage 1, we have premenopause, which is simply our reproductive years. And you can see from this chart that when we are in premenopause, our estrogen levels are very high. You can see from that green chart right there. Then as we transition into perimenopause, our estrogen levels start to dwindle. And you can start to see irregular periods. Maybe our periods are a little lighter. We start to see some mood swings, weight gain, a host of other symptoms that aren't even on here, but I'll just go through them quickly. Hot flashes, breast tenderness, anxiety and depression, joint pain, fatigue, insomnia, UTIs, less libido, and even a racing heart. So perimenopause usually happens around age 45 to 55, but it can happen much sooner than that, and it can also happen much later than that. On average, perimenopause lasts from 4 to 7 years. So I know that doesn't seem quite fair, but it can actually last as long as 14 years. But keep in mind that every woman is different, every body is different. So you can see from this chart that the symptoms tend to be the strongest during perimenopause. And then we transition into actual menopause, which is defined as no period for 12 months, consecutive months. And you can see that estrogen levels are extremely low when we do enter full-blown menopause. And it typically happens around the ages of 50 to 51. But again, it can happen much sooner and much later because we're all very different. And then the 4th stage is postmenopause, and this is just defined as the remainder of our lifespan after menopause. And then it's also worth mentioning that some women may experience premature menopause, and that can happen anytime before the age of 40. This might occur due to certain illnesses, genetics, or medical procedures. So now if you are interested in what stage you are of this cycle, you can actually go to your doctor. You can get your hormone levels tested, and they can tell you, okay, you're just starting premenopause, you're just starting peri, you're in full-blown menopause, you're in postmenopause. If you're interested in that, maybe you just want to let nature take its course. But if that's something that you want to find out, that is certainly something you can talk to your primary caregiver about. I am in perimenopause, and I like to share my story because, like I said, it's kind of a hush-hush topic, but we should talk about it. We should share these stories, and I've learned so much about menopause and perimenopause in the last 3 years. So I started having symptoms 3 years ago. I'm 49, so started having some of the symptoms that I just mentioned. But what's interesting is a lot of the symptoms are very similar to pregnancy. So, of course, I thought I was pregnant right off the bat. When I realized that I was in perimenopause, didn't have a period for 6 months, and I thought, well, this isn't so bad. I'm already in menopause. This isn't bad. 6 months isn't bad. And then the night before my wedding, I started my period. So then another 6 months went by and didn't have a period. And then I started on the plane on our honeymoon. And then another 6 months went by, didn't have a period. And I thought, okay, menopause, here it is. And I started the night before my Ironman race. So it just goes to show that we never know how long it's going to last. We never know how long the phase is going to be. We never know what our symptoms are going to be because we're also very different. But Mother Nature does kind of have a sick and twisted sense of humor, if you will. All right, so symptoms for perimenopause. Oops, I just lost my place here. Okay, here we go. So we talked about how perimenopause can be the most symptomatic phase. Our hormone levels are fluctuating. They're all over the place. We may have those crazy symptoms. We may not. Every woman is different. Weight gain is actually the most common symptom and complaint in both peri and menopause. And it's not just always weight gain. You may have a shift in our body composition. So you may be noticing more fat around your belly, around your midsection. So why does this happen? Well, at the same time that our estrogen levels are decreasing, because we know that as we enter peri and menopause, our estrogen levels really decline. At that same time, another very important hormone called cortisol, which you may have heard of before, that's our stress hormone, that is increasing. So likely that stress hormone is what's causing our fat to build up around our midsection, maybe our bellies, our hips, and our thighs. We also know that the lack of estrogen can lead to bone loss. So more brittle bones, a higher risk of osteoporosis, an increased risk in cardiovascular disease. And again, our chances for getting osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease naturally increase as we age. We know this, but even more so as we enter menopause because of that lack of estrogen. We also know that we may experience anxiety or depression in perimenopause. Why does this happen? Well, once again, we can blame the lack of estrogen. So estrogen makes another very important hormone called serotonin. I'm sure you've heard of that too. Serotonin is our feel-good hormone. So again, if our feel-good hormone is decreasing and our stress hormone is increasing, of course, we're going to feel more anxious, more depressed. That's just what happens because of that lack of estrogen. Another symptom that I kind of skipped over here, but definitely worth mentioning is body pain. This has been a huge issue for me personally as well since I've entered perimenopause. Joint pain dramatically increases with aging anyway, but even more so because of that lack of estrogen. So estrogen, turns out, is a very powerful anti-inflammatory. So we'll have even more joint pain when we enter peri and menopause. Frozen shoulders are very common. I know my hips have become very, very tight. I'm a runner, and I never had joint pain ever, ever, ever until I started getting in perimenopause. And it's that lack of estrogen. I went to my doctor and I said, what's happening? Do I have arthritis? Nope, just lack of estrogen because of perimenopause. And then finally, we have forgetfulness. If you've ever heard of brain fog is very real. We're not sleeping in the first place because our hormones are all over the place. We forget things. Sometimes it can feel like the onset of dementia, so it can be a little scary sometimes, but it's just brain fog. So again, this is where talking to our coworkers, our friends, our daughters, our spouses, that's where this really becomes very important. We should talk about that brain fog. Tell people about your symptoms, tell people about your story. And then we add another hormone, which is melatonin. That is the natural hormone that helps us sleep in our bodies. Sure enough, estrogen helps make melatonin. So when we reach peri and meno and our estrogen levels are depleted, so is that melatonin. That's why we can't sleep. We have trouble sleeping. We have insomnia. And then you can add hot flashes to the mix. And then it really gets hard to sleep. Hot flashes are one of the biggest symptoms as well as weight gain. There are things we can do. We're going to talk about all the things that we can do. But again, we shouldn't be embarrassed and we should talk about this. Okay, training recommendations for perimenopause and menopause. So variety is the spice of life. Again, choosing something we enjoy becomes very, very important. Remember that strength training is considered any form of resistance. It doesn't mean we have to throw around heavy weights with the guys. Doesn't mean we have to do CrossFit. It can be any type of resistance for our body. So body weight exercises, resistant bands, Pilates, yoga, bar, even gardening, all those things are considered strength training. And obviously pick something you enjoy because that way you're going to stick to it. We know that strength training is critical for peri and menopause. And we also know that we can lose 10 to 15% of our muscle mass within the first 10 years of menopause. So resistance training will improve our strength. It'll help increase our bone density. It'll help with that weight gain. We know that our metabolism decreases with age. And we know that strength training increases our metabolic rate. So if you think about strength training as fuel to keep our bodies burning, our bodies are like furnaces, and you can think of strength training as the fuel. So the more muscle you have, the more fat you're burning, even while you're working, even while you're sitting on the couch, even while you're sleeping. So that strength training just becomes very, very important for our metabolism as well. We also know that in recent studies, women who did strength training 3 times a week saw the frequency of their hot flashes reduced by 44%. So any form of exercise is a vasodilator, which helps with our vascular function, helps with our temperature regulation, which in turn can help with those hot flashes. So not just strength training, but any form of exercise. That's enough for me to do strength training. We know that our full body circuit training may be the most effective type for us. So combining both cardio and strength training. So where we're focusing on all muscle groups at once, we're getting more bang for our buck that way. Cardiovascular exercise still is very important as well. We know that this can help decrease our risk of cardiovascular disease. We know that that lack of estrogen can increase our risk for CVD. So we want to aim for at least 30 minutes of aerobic exercise most days of the week. Sometimes, it can seem a little overwhelming, but you can break it up into chunks throughout the day. Maybe you're a morning person, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes after work. So 30 minutes most days of the week. And we want to shoot for those weight-bearing exercises, so things like walking, running, hiking, dancing, or again, any activity that you enjoy that's going to get your heart rate up. All right, so now we have symptoms of post-menopause. Okay, so in menopause, we know that this is the time in our life when we don't have a period for 12 consecutive months. But this is thereafter. Postmenopause is any time after we reach full-blown menopause. Okay, so symptoms may actually still occur post-menopause, believe it or not. They're typically much less intense, much less frequent. And if you are still having those massive hot flashes, that weight gain, your symptoms are actually getting worse, you may want to actually go to your doctor and talk about this because they really should, be a little bit less severe. Sometimes symptoms can continue for 4 to 5 years after, but again, they're usually a little less severe. And remember that every woman is different. So always talk to your doctor. That is the #1 rule. And studies suggest that postmenopausal women were 65% happier, 66% more independent, and 59% enjoyed better relationships with partners or friends. So that is something to look forward to, right? And this is where that positive mindset really comes into play. If we flip our mindset and focus on the positive and realize that there are things we can do to help ease these symptoms. We have deep breathing, we have meditation, we have the Headspace app that's super helpful, all of which can help us with that positive mindset. And also, by the way, I'm doing a special Mind Over Menopause webinar on Thursday, same time. If you can attend that, it's going to be all about that mindset, how we can flip our mindset to make this time of our life be positive and happy. And we're going to focus on that deep breathing and that meditation. So I will be sure to send out that link in the follow-up email. So now we have training recommendations for those post-menopausal women. So remember that just because some of our symptoms have decreased, it doesn't mean we should stop exercising. We still will reap the benefits of fitness in post-menopause. So remember, our bone density has dramatically decreased, so strength training remains a priority. We're even more susceptible to osteoporosis during this time. So we need to keep moving to be stronger, to be more independent. Staying fit is going to decrease our risk of falling. Staying active is going to prevent our risk for diabetes, cardiovascular disease, especially as we age. Exercise will help us decrease that joint pain. As we age, we know that our joints lose that elasticity. We become more susceptible to arthritis. So we want to continue improving our mobility and our flexibility. Exercise is going to continue to help our mood, help keep us at that healthy weight, and help us stay independent longer. So in terms of recommendations for post-menopause, we want to continue to strength train at least 2 times per week. We want to opt for more hypertrophy, so those larger volume, meaning more sets per muscle group. Again, that circuit training is very helpful. We want to focus on more balanced movements. So those of you that ever taken any of my classes, no matter what classes is, I always have a chair there because I struggle with balance and stability. So don't ever be ashamed to have a chair handy. But you can practice balance, and we should practice balance every day. All we need is 10 minutes every day. Did you know that we lose 10% of our stability every decade? So for example, in our 20s, we should be able to stand on our foot for 60, on one foot for 60 seconds and not fall over. In our 30s, it goes down to 50 seconds. In our 40s, it goes down to 40 seconds. In our 50s, we typically can only stand on one foot for 30 seconds. So we're not going to try that now, but try it on your own. Time yourself and see if you can, got something in the chat here. Yes, I will definitely share the link 100%. I will send a follow-up email. I will share the link. So anyway, try that on your own. I know that I struggle. I'm almost 50 and I can pretty much only stand on my one foot for about 30 seconds before falling over. My kids make fun of me, but it's just the way it is. So we need to practice that balance at least 10 minutes every day. Flexibility and mobility, that's another good one. Again, we lose that fluidity and the elasticity of our joints as we age. And then finally, joining a community, a walking group. You can walk with your spouse, your kids, your coworkers. So you not only get that accountability, but you also get that social time and you can make it fun. Okay, nutrition recommendations. We're just going to go over the very basic guidelines here. We know that we should have protein in each meal or snack. So if you follow a plant-based diet, that would be your nuts, your legumes, your chickpeas. We also want to keep in mind that fiber is so important. I ran into this problem because everyone was like, protein, protein, protein. When you reach menopause, you need more protein. So I ate so much protein and then I lacked fiber. So we really want a balance of both. We want to shoot for that balance of both high protein and fiber. 2 to 3 servings of fruits per day and a serving of vegetable with every single meal. We want a colorful plate. We want whole grains and we want to avoid those processed foods and we want to limit sugar as much as possible. Focus on a balance of proteins, carbs, and fats. Drink plenty of water. This is going to help us keep our joints lubricated. It's going to help with those hot flashes. It's going to regulate our temperature. It will help with our fatigue. It's even going to help our metabolism, keep our metabolism revved up. Avoid spicy foods. This is a big one, especially if you have those hot flashes, and this works. I used to love spicy foods. One of the dietitians told me to avoid spicy foods, and sure enough, they have really eased my hot flashes. Another thing that's really helped me in particular is more strength training. So everybody's different, like I keep saying, so it's trial and error. See what things help you. So try to limit those spicy foods if you are having hot flashes. Caffeine and alcohol in moderation, especially if you're suffering from those sleepless nights. I know the first thing that we want to do when we're tired is grab caffeine. The first thing we want to do when we're anxious is grab alcohol, but it's only going to make things worse at nighttime. So try to limit those things. Eating foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids. So your things like your salmon and your other fatty fishes. Sometimes we require a vitamin D supplement or a probiotic to help us with inflammation and gut health. Those are things you're going to want to talk to your doctor about. You may have noticed that a lot of these things are pretty much the same guidelines we have through every phase of our life. So if you want more individualized or more personal guidance, this is a good time to set up a one-on-one with a dietitian. They'll be able to help you out with your eating plan, and they'll be able to give you some tips on exactly how much protein you need and maybe some advice on those supplements that you might want to take. Hormone replacement therapy. This is one of those kind of controversial subjects. It's not for everyone, but some women swear by it. This is where that number one rule, you're going to want to talk to your doctor again. Find out if it's right for you. It's not the only solution. Um, we can do things like our exercise, prioritizing our strength training, looking at our nutrition, stress reduction, meditation. Headspace can be very helpful, a great tool for that guided meditation. There are some risks to hormone replacement therapy. This is why it becomes a little bit controversial. It can increase your risk of breast cancer, blood clots, stroke, depression, and anxiety. But on the other hand, it can also actually help with anxiety and depression. It can reduce night sweats, actually help with sleep, reduce our risk for osteoporosis, and increase our muscle mass. So if you look on that chart there, you can see some of the risks versus rewards, and you can see some of the percentages. Studies have shown that it is highly effective and it is typically pretty safe for most women. But again, I keep saying it, we're all different. I haven't turned to hormone replacement therapy just yet, but I'm not saying I never will. I might. We'll see how long this perimenopause lasts, and I may. Like I said, the strength training and the not eating spicy foods and the staying very hydrated has really, really helped me with my symptoms. So try some of those things, see if they help. But if you want to turn to hormone replacement therapy, nobody's going to judge you. Talk to your doctor about it. Okay, next steps and resources. Roughly 25 million women will pass through menopause each year. That's a ton. And again, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So let's talk about it. Let's share our stories. Let's spread awareness. Finally, we're getting to that time where it's more acceptable to talk about. So I think we should. And then you all have these great tools as Intel employees. You have the Exos app. That's where you're going to find the live and on-demand classes. That's where you'll find the one-on-one coaching consult. So if you want, again, more personalized plan, if you have more personal questions, please reach out to any of us coaches. We can help you with a game plan tailored to your goals. This is where you'll find the yoga, the Pilates, the more low impact classes if you're having that joint pain. I personally love barre. That's my favorite. So we've got great classes out there. Our yoga instructors, our Pilates instructors are amazing. So that, ask questions. If you need help navigating those classes, let me know. And then we have our mental well-being. So our ergo one-on-ones, that's where we can just guide you in the right directions. We have our Headspace app, that's guided meditation, really, really helpful for that mindset. Physical movement guided or self-paced, we can put you on a personal game plan. And then we have our women in Intel groups and our Yammer pages, so you can hook up with like-minded women and we can share our stories finally. So with that, I know we had only 25 minutes. Oh, I did pretty good on time. I'm happy about that. Let us know your feedback. Let us know what you thought. And I'm going to open up the chat because we do have a little bit of time here. And see if we have any questions here. All right, somebody. Yep, multiple upcoming. Thank you. Thank you for throwing that in there. We do have a couple more sessions for this particular webinar coming up in the next few days. My Mind Over Menopause webinar, that link is right there as well. I'm going to send you all a follow-up email. You'll have all the information all organized right at your fingertips. I will share it after this. I will also share the recording. It would be great to have programs, tips on how to stay on top of training for neuro. Okay. I like that. That is I really have not heard that request yet, but I like that. ADHD women, that's fantastic. I know we talked about some different conditions last week. We talked about PCOS, we talked about endometriosis, we talked about some thyroid conditions, which we don't typically talk about those either. So I'm glad we're getting it out there. It's so great. And, women are sharing their stories with each other and we're sharing tips. One more tip that I did forget to tell you about, but I always share this in all my menopause webinars because I think it's worth mentioning. And it's not a very common symptom, but the racing heart. So not a lot of women have this, but when I started having symptoms of perimenopause, I woke up in the middle of the night with a hot flash, of course, and my heart was beating so fast. My pulse was racing. I was dripping in sweat. And I thought, is this a panic attack? No, it's not a panic attack. I've had panic attacks before. They don't last this long. And it lasted for a good 30 minutes. Woke up my husband and said, I think I need to go to the hospital. I think I'm having a heart attack. So eventually I did that deep breathing. I calmed down. My heart rate got back to normal. Yes, thank you, Peggy, for mentioning that. So other people have too. Okay, thank you, thank you. See, I didn't know about this one. And so the next morning I called my doctor and she said, Adrienne, classic menopause. That's what it is. And so once I started talking to my friends and my coworkers about it, they said, oh yeah, didn't you see that Oprah episode where she had the same issue? She was racing heart. She thought she was having a heart attack, went to the hospital. Sure enough, it was just menopause. So it's out there. We just need to talk about it. We need to share our symptoms because I had no idea. So I'm so glad that other people have had the same issues. Joint pain, knee pain is going crazy. I know what's causing it. Yes, that's what it is. Talk to your doctor, talk to your coworkers, try some of those tips, those recommendations that we recommended. Um, Sometimes it is harder when we do have that joint pain to actually exercise because it hurts. But that's when we want to do those low impact options. Maybe more reps, less weight. We just need to tweak our programs. It doesn't mean we have to stop exercising. It just means we have to kind of tweak our programs. So awesome. I love it. I'm loving all this interaction and all your comments. So thank you again all for joining me.